When conducting surveys, it's important to not only get a representative sample, but also to be very careful about how you word your survey questions. In this lesson, we're going to talk about question wording effects, which simply mean that the way that you ask survey questions can impact your results, even if the underlying opinions of the people that you're asking don't actually change. So the first type of question wording effects we're going to look at is open versus closed questions. An open question allows any response. While closed questions require choosing among different options. So basically open questions are free response, closed questions are multiple choice. So the deal with this is that because there are different numbers of options to choose from, so in an open question you can give any option, any response that you want, while in a closed questions you're limited to a few. Because there are a different number of options to choose from, the proportions giving each response are often different. So for example, here's an open question. So this would be an open question. Let's say this is just a little sheet of paper that we hand people. Whereas here, circle your favorite. And the options are vanilla, chocolate, mint chocolate chip, and Rocky Road. This would be a closed question. And the thing is, if I was just going to write my favorite ice cream flavor, I might write that coffee with peanut butter cups flavor that I've encountered one time. But here, if I'm just looking at this road, well, my favorite of these ones listed is mint chocolate chip. So that might be the one that I check off. And so the thing is that each of these options is going to get more votes here because there's only 4 to choose from, whereas it's going to get fewer votes over here most likely because someone could list anything else in the world. That's what open and closed questions. So it's not something where you're deliberately biasing it, but it's still how you answer the question has a pretty big impact, or how you ask the question has a pretty big impact on the answers that you get back. Sometimes the difference in the questions is a little more deliberate. So there's a second, or a little more deliberately designed to get a particular response. So there's a second question wording effect, which is positive versus negative phrasing. So positive phrasing has a positive tone to it. Using words like protect or promote, or the idea of protecting or promote. So, for example, we might say, allow only healthy snacks after school. Whereas negative phrasing has a negative tone often banning or eliminating something. So, for example, ban junk food. After school. And so the thing is that these are talking about the same thing. If we're only going to allow healthy snacks after school, that means no junk food. That's the same thing as banning junk food after school. So even though these two mean the same thing, we typically see that people are more likely to agree with a statement that's phrased in a positive way and disagree with something that's phrased in a negative way. I should say positive phrased questions and disagree with negatively phrased ones. Positively phrased, negatively phrased. And so this actually was used in the Prop 8 fight in 2008 on the California ballot that was about the definition of marriage or banning same-sex marriage, depending on how you looked at it. So this is a little article from 2008 in the San Francisco Chronicle, where on the ballot language that was used. So it says that opposition to Prop 8, which is California measure to ban same-sex marriage, is mounting following Attorney General Jerry Brown's move to change the language on the initiative. And this poll just means somebody took a bunch of surveys, took a sample of people, gave them all a bunch of surveys, and asked what they thought. And so the original ballot language down here was saying to amend the California Constitution to provide the only marriage between a man and a woman is valid or recognized in California. That's a positive phrasing, saying it's providing, it's saying this is what's valid. These are positive words. However, the amended same ballot summary says it's talking about eliminating a right. So here, this first one, provide, valid, recognize, those are all positive. Whereas here, eliminating a right, there's eliminate a right again, that is negative phrasing. Even though these two things mean the exact same thing. So what pollsters found was that the amended language played a role in people being more opposed to it, especially among people who didn't know what it was talking about, never heard of it. So these are sort of folks who didn't know a whole lot about Prop 8 were much more likely to oppose the measure when reading the negative phrasing. So 58% said, ooh, eliminate a right? No, 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 we can't do that. Whereas only 42% said, or 52%, excuse me, whereas only 42% had that same reaction, no, 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 don't do this, when there was this positive phrasing down here. So these are very real effects. They're deliberately used, and one of the things to watch out for when reading polls in the newspaper is exactly that. How were the questions phrased? So coming back here to give us an example. So more people support declaring marriage to be only between a man and a woman than support banning gay marriage. Even though they're the same thing, and we saw that after it passed. The third and last question wording effect that we're going to go over is question order effects. So question order effects simply means changing what comes right before a question can change how people respond to it. This is based on something called priming. And that's just what's in people's heads when they're thinking about something else. So for example, if we've just been talking about the beautiful weather in Oakland and how it's all beautiful and sunny all the time, and then someone asks me if I like Oakland, I might give a more positive response than if we've just been talking about the crime rate and how my car just got broken into. And then somebody asks me if I like Oakland, and I'm thinking about different things, different aspects of the question, and different things that are relevant to the question, depending on what I've been thinking about beforehand. And this is just normal because as human beings, we can't think about everything all the time, but what we are thinking about at that moment, that affects how we respond to a particular question. And this is why sometimes people answer questions differently depending on when you ask them the question, and also if you ask someone a question one time and then ask them again a couple days later, they might give you different answers depending on what they're thinking about, what mood they're in, that kind of stuff. So for example, asking you to think about, and so asking questions can cause people to think about this. So asking you to think about sunny Oakland weather before asking your opinion about the city. may yield different responses than asking you to think about the crime rate first would. Another thing is that people are more likely to pick either the first or the last option from a long list than the ones in the middle, especially if they just don't know very much about the options. This actually can be quite a bit of a problem when it comes to election ballots, especially elections for positions that people don't know very much about, is if there's a long list and there's a candidate at the top of the list has a major advantage over someone who's in the middle of the list. To get around this, oftentimes ballots or political polls will rotate the order of questions when asking about them. But if you think about a long time back, California had a really long list of gubernatorial candidates in a special election for governor. And there were so many of them that they had to sort of rotate the order in order to not have the person at the head of the alphabet get this huge advantage.